When explorers find a planet covered entirely in bones, they think it's long dead. But the bones are warm and they move. The planet's surface stretched endlessly beneath the scout ship, a barren wasteland of ivory. Captain Elias Rourke leaned over the viewing glass, his breath fogging it despite the ship's climate control. Every ridge, every dune, every jagged peak shimmered white. Not with snow, but with something far older, far more terrible. Bones. Billions of them. Femurs, ribcages, skulls the size of drop pods, vertebrae like collapsed towers. The planet was an ossuary, a graveyard the size of a world. "This isn't natural," whispered Marin, the ship's biologist. Her voice carried that familiar quiver Rourke had learned to recognize over a dozen missions. She was scared. And when Marin was scared, it usually meant there was something worth being scared of. No ecosystem collapses like this. Not completely. Not without leaving traces of life. "We're looking at life," said Cutter, their weapons officer, with a humorless grin. "Life that died a long time ago. What worries me is, what killed it?" Silence filled the cabin as the ship drifted lower. The sensors showed no heat signatures, no power grids, no radio chatter. Just bone. Endless, ageless bone. It should have been comforting. No threats meant no fight. But Rourke couldn't shake the feeling gnawing at him as he ordered a landing. The ship touched down on what passed for level ground. Bones crunched and snapped under the landing struts. As the ramp descended, a wind whispered across the planet's surface, stirring skeletal dust into a thin, glittering haze. The air was surprisingly breathable. Rourke motioned for the team to fan out, weapons ready. Marin crouched near a ribcage taller than she was. "These are fresh," she said, brushing away dust to reveal clean white surface beneath. "There's no sign of rot, no weathering. They've been replaced." "Replaced?" Rourke asked. She nodded slowly, almost like something keeps them new. Cutter kicked at a skull, sending it tumbling. "Great. So we're standing on a world-sized art project." Then the skull stopped rolling. Rourke saw it first, the way it twitched like something inside was pushing against it. The sockets turned toward them, empty and yet somehow aware. The jaw creaked open in a soundless scream. "Back to the ship," Rourke barked, but it was already too late. The ground began to shift, the layer of bones rippling like disturbed water. Something huge was stirring beneath the surface. Massive femurs and spines clattered as they rolled aside, creating a yawning pit that exposed blackness far below. Then came the sound, a low, resonant clicking that echoed across the plain. "They're alive," Marin whispered. Shapes emerged from the pit. They weren't just bones. They were creatures. Skeletons fused with sinew that pulsed faintly, bone marrow veins glowing with a sickly green bioluminescence. "The Hive." The word slashed through Rourke's mind like lightning. He had heard the reports, the rumors from fringe systems. An alien superorganism that consumed everything, leaving only death and assimilation. He had never believed them, until now. The first of the Hive creatures lunged forward on spidery limbs. Its skull twisted into a mask of hunger. Cutter fired, the plasma bolt shattering it into shards. But more climbed out, dozens, then hundreds, clattering and screeching as they moved with terrible coordination. "Fall back," Rourke ordered, firing into the swarm. They made it to the ship, but the Hive was faster. Bones slithered together to form barricades, blocking their path. The creatures were building as they fought, reshaping the very landscape into a trap. "Engines now," Rourke yelled. The pilot slammed the controls. The ship roared to life, tearing free of the ground, leaving behind clouds of shattered bone and hissing creatures. As they broke atmosphere, Rourke looked back. The surface was no longer still. Vast regions of bone were shifting, rising into patterns, ridges, towers, spirals. It looked like the planet itself was waking up. "Captain," Marin said softly, "we didn't just find a graveyard. We found a nursery." The realization hit him like a punch. This planet wasn't dead. It was alive. The bones weren't remnants. They were part of it, grown, shed, replaced, and grown again like scales on some colossal beast. And now it knew they were here. Over the next hours, they monitored the planet from orbit. Where they had landed, a vast structure was rising. A spire of bones, spiraling toward the sky. At its peak, something huge unfurled itself, its silhouette unmistakable. A queen. "She's summoning them," Marin said, her face pale. "Calling the Hive across the galaxy." "Then we leave," Cutter said. "Right now. Before they—" The ship rocked violently as something slammed into it. Rourke barely caught the console as alarms blared. "We've been hit." "From where?" the pilot shouted. "From below," Rourke growled. Bones, miles of them, were launching into orbit like living missiles. They weren't just waking up the planet. They were building a fleet. Massive bone shards pierced the void, connecting, locking into place, forming grotesque ships that gleamed like bleached teeth. "We can't fight this," Marin said, terror creeping into her voice. "No," Rourke admitted, "but we can warn the others." They burned the engines, breaking free of the planet's gravity. But as they fled, the bone fleet followed. The Hive had waited thousands of years in silence. Now it was spreading again. The crew huddled in the dim red glow of the cabin, every shake of the hull making their hearts hammer. Rourke stared at the screen, watching the swarm grow. "This isn't just a world," he said at last. "It's a throne, and its queen is awake." No one spoke. Outside, the stars seemed to shiver as the Hive world's first fleet spread its wings and began to hunt. They had discovered a planet of bones. They had thought it dead. They had been wrong. The Hive had ruled it for thousands of years, and now it was alive again, hungrier than ever. And somewhere deep inside, Rourke felt a cold certainty. They had just doomed the galaxy by waking it.